You are listening to Radical Sacred, a podcast centered around spirituality, nature, and connection.
I'm Phil Dickey, pastor, eco-spiritualist, activist, friend of trees, and a small-town Missourian living in the heart of Dallas.
And I'm Jenny Mislin, spiritual director, teacher, seeker, bird watcher, and a homesick Texan living in France.
Join us now as we live the questions, learn from open-hearted conversations, and explore our own deep and sacred roots.
I Am My Ancestors by Teresa Stovall. I am my ancestors' wildest dream. They are the river fed by my stream. My mother, the ocean, my father, the flames. I offer love, praises, and thanks to their names. I am my ancestors' continuation. They conjured the magic of my creation. Their names echoing in my braided soul. Their spirits and journeys making me whole. I am the sequel to my ancestors' stories, carrying their grief, their grooves, and their glories, bearing the lessons they learned the hard way to enrich and empower all my DNA. I am but a link in my ancestors' chain, carrying the karma of their pleasures and pain, gleaning the wisdom of their whispered warnings, rising on their wings to greet my fresh mornings. I am the sum of my ancestors' choices, repping 3 continents and multiple voices, Black, Jewish, and Blackfoot Siouxish, moving as one soul, both ancient and newish. I am my ancestors' woven reflection at this identity intersection. Roots run mighty deep and spread mighty wide, so none of their truths can be denied. I am my ancestors' legacy, honoring all that they bequeathed to me. Many peoples that have defied all oppression, to thrive against odds is our plan of succession. I am created by my ancestors' longing, wrapped in their loving embrace of belonging. Past, present, and future we synthesize. Together we journey, together we rise. Amen.
Amen.
Friends, today we have the good fortune of having Reverend William H. Lamar IV, aka Bill, joining us once again, second time on the podcast, and we are so grateful to have you back with us, Bill. For those who missed Bill's first appearance on our podcast way back in season 1, Bill is a senior pastor, Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C. Yes, that Metropolitan AME, who was in the midst of a lawsuit with the Proud Boys the last time we had him on, and I think has now been resolved. And did y'all finally start selling merchandise? Are you selling merchandise yet?
It is unresolved, sir.
Okay.
This thing is eternal and ongoing, and it takes a lot of energy. I'm really thankful for the lawyers who keep fighting, but we're fighting on every front: cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. One of the most interesting things now is with the kind of who knows about this slush fund that the president of the United States wanted to offer folks like these people.
Yeah.
We are attaching ourselves to that so that if they get something, we get paid first. So we are it's like the Liston Ali fight, man. Keep punching and punching and punching.
Just keeps going. More and more than just a lawsuit. That church has been a storied space in the DC area. People like Frederick Douglass have preached from that pulpit, and it's been a place of all kinds of ancestors who both have occupied that space physically and continue to occupy that space in a lot of beautiful ways. And I finally had the good fortune to worship with y'all a couple months ago in the fall last year, and just a beautiful, beautiful space. So that's one role. You're also an avid writer, and we're going to talk a little bit today about your book, Ancestors, Those Who Bless Us, Curse Us, and Hold Us, which is a fabulous title, and we'll talk about that too. But also make multiple guest appearances on PBS NewsHour, The Readout, Joy Reid, Politics Nation with Al Sharpton, NPR, Washington.
When it existed.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're in a lot of spaces in a lot of ways, Bill, and so we are super grateful for you taking some time today to be with us and to talk about your book. But this is really, the book we felt like, I say we again, Jenny, really felt like what a great opportunity to talk about ancestors and on Father's Day. And so this is just a special Father's Day edition of Radical Sacred. And so we are really grateful for you taking time, and would love for you, if there's any other pieces of your biography that you'd love to share with our audience, we welcome it.
Well, let me thank you, Phil and Jenny, for the opportunity. Phil is a long time and good friend, and anything he asks me to do, I'm going to do, because it's always great. And Jenny, good to see you again. Hopefully, when you come back to the States, the fates will conspire. We can all be in the same place.
Yeah.
As we think about Father's Day, I'm especially grateful for my own father, William H. Lamar III, who is still in these days an outstanding guide and leader and model for what a man should be, not toxic, but communal, not seeking to control, but leading out of compassion and discipline and a vision not only for this generation, but generations to come. So very grateful for him. And I knew his father and his father, and I'm grateful to be a part of that line. And let me also, I have no biological children, though I'm surrounded by children, but I'm thankful for the father that Phil is. It's always a joy to watch him move with his kids, and the compassion, leadership, and love he provides. So to all fathers, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Talk about something that will test your patience. Whew, Lord in heaven. No, yeah, it's a gift, and it is an honor to carry on that from my own father, and so grateful for you saying that. Would love to know what really compelled you and led you to write this book specifically, and especially I was looking at some notes from your book last night, and it's not like it was something real popular in the tradition from which you come, right? To really even discuss ancestors. So would love to know what was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a book that might actually piss off a bunch of people in my space.
It's been very interesting that some people who I would argue, well, it's not even an argument, they are more conservative than I, and I take biblical texts seriously, but not literally. And they're pretty close to literalists. It's very interesting. I was watching Bart Ehrman give a lecture, and he was talking about how all of the ways that the gospel writers say different things about who Jesus was and what he did. Like, that absolutely don't agree on a lot of detail. So I remember I was preaching a sermon saying, okay, now wait a minute. These things lead us to, we must conclude that this is not inerrant, that these are people trying to get something right. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's kind of, that betrays how I think about these things. But again, I take it seriously. But I know people who take the text literally, who have read the book, and they thank me. I'm like, what are you thanking me for? Because I thought that you were going to have the knives and the pitchforks out ready to burn me at the stake. And they said, well, I talked to my mother, and she's been gone for 30 years. I talked to my grandmother, and she's been gone for 50 years. Like, this giving them space. And also, I'm going to be very clear about strategy and using the text itself to say that this is not only okay, but it was done. And it's probably a practice that's not just okay, it may be necessary, especially in times like these. So that is around the barn. To get to your question, the answer is I felt like I could not do it. I felt like it's very much like when I listen to artists I respect, songwriters, musicians, poets. They say that if they sit in a place and yield themselves to listening, discernment, and discipline, the song, the poem, they write themselves. So I was being called to be a conduit and to get this out of me, I think, because I needed it, but also because it seems that it connects with other people and some folks in powerful ways. So I'm grateful for that.
can I jump in on the biblical side of things real quick here? Because I mean, what you I got an early edition of the book, felt very privileged because I reached out to you and I was like, hey, you once preached a sermon on the Transfiguration, connecting that to ancestors, and like this was a practice of Jesus of being on top of the mountain and engaging with his ancestors through the Transfiguration story, which I had never looked at it through that lens. Just it says a lot about like where I grew up as well and the tradition from which I come too. But
Me too.
right, and so I remember hearing that sermon, and I was going to be preaching on Transfiguration Sunday, and I thought I really want to be able to look over that again. And I said, "Hey, I can't find where you'd preach a sermon, and you just sent me the book. You're like, here's a little, here's where I wrote about it. It's in the book," which was very generous of you. But will you just? I love how you say that. I think it's so important for people to hear that you take it. You don't take the Bible literally, but you take it seriously. And again, I listen to your sermons, pretty much every Sunday, and I love the way that you do take it so seriously, and you dive into a text and like you invite your congregation, you invite all who worship with you, participate, to see Scripture through often a different lens, and it's a very serious lens, right? And it's also a lens that ties and recognizes what's happening in the world today. And so will you share a little bit about the Transfiguration story and why that was inspiring for you on this specific ancestor idea?
Well, it's clearly the work from where I sit of being in a group led by Dr. Itihari Ture, Mama Itihari, who teaches at McCormick Theological Seminary in Chicago. There are a group of us who are in a Lilly-funded group, and she's our leader around ancestral imagination and proclamation. So in those spaces, I was able, and this is very interesting, to take down the lenses that kept me from reading the text. Now, let's be very clear. I was always reading the text, having the text read to me and interpreting it. But there were things that the lenses before me would never allow me to see. This is what's amazing about reading and how many of us are unaware, myself included. And there could be things blinking before us, but if we have not been taught to see them, we will miss them. So being in that space, taking down these blinders, if you will, and re-engaging, I said, wait a minute, this is very clearly the gospel writers, and this shows up everywhere but in John. It is a part of the synoptic tradition, sourced, of course, by Mark according to the Q theory, Q source theory. So it is important to each of the writers to include Jesus and this discourse with Moses and with Elijah. Absolutely crazy. It says they climbed the mountain. In the book, I make a big thing out of that about not everybody goes with him. He takes two, Peter and John. Is it Peter and John, Peter and James? I'm confused. Which is it, Phil? I can't remember. It's two,
I was going to say
whatever.
John as well. I think it's
Yeah, but
maybe it's
in the
James.
words of the great late Rob Bass, it takes two to make a thing go right, right? So he took may Rob Bass rest in peace, but he took those two up the mountain. And, anybody's ever climbed vertically, you are trying to get up something that's high. That's exertion. So they get up to the top, and it says that Moses and Elijah appear and they are in conversation. And the text seems to me, at least from where I read it probably could be different textures elsewhere. These are not apparitions. These are not phantasmagoric appearances. These are not ghosts. In some way, they are material. In some mysterious way, they are material. Just like for those of us who mourn people who are no longer here physically, sometimes you feel a physical presence from them. So it was something physical, it was something material. And it says that they were talking. Now, the gospel writers don't tell us what they say, but I think the way that I have read it, and this is because I read other people's thinking about it as well, it seems like this was necessary before Jesus engaged the most challenging aspects of fulfilling his mission and fulfilling his understanding of faithfulness to God. So you know what, Phil, you're helping me because I feel like, and I'm also failing, but this is a good way for me to read it, especially where I am right now. I needed to do this to move to the next phase of my faithfulness. I had never thought of it that way. But this is what good interviewers do. They give you space and you come to some truth. And I really, that this was something I had to do to be faithful in the next steps of my journey. Because in many ways, I don't think, and I think I don't speak for me, but in many ways, I have not been as faithful to my own journey as I should have been. And I have done things in that journey that I should not have done. And in the words of one of my poetic pastors, and I have left undone things that I was called to do. So
Oof.
that
Yeah.
that reset possibly.
Geez, Bill. This book is one of those things that removes lenses and then invites and that reinvigorates, I think. And it opens with you learning to swim. And there's a watery thread throughout the book. I think water is an important theme in this book. Will you talk to us about that?
Definitely, I remember my wife is a scholar of African American literature, so she's really smart, and I get the benefit, and people who listen to me get the benefit from my stealing stuff from her. But she was quoting Toni Morrison, and I was thinking about there have been practices in the history of the world where people in power have essentially flooded places so that they can take property, take people's. There are many stories in the United States where that has been done. Lake Lanier in Georgia is an example. They actually found human remains, vehicles, homes, all kinds of stuff is when the water. But I think about that because I relate this Toni Morrison quote. Toni Morrison says that water has perfect memory. It always returns. So a flood is not a flood. It is water returning to its rightful place, to its home. Water has perfect memory. And I try to work with the fact that we are all born into a watery sack, right? That we are born living, breathing, subsisting, being nourished, and waste being carried away in water, in wombs. And water is a site of the beautiful and the terrible. So we spent time traveling out of the United States, perched in a beautiful place with the ocean, Atlantic Ocean, right before me. And every morning when I would get up and look out, I'm reminded of really the commingling of the beautiful and the terrible, which might just be one of the most accurate descriptions of what it means to be human, for what we have done to one another and really often what we do to ourselves individually. So my mother was convinced that her children needed to learn to swim. My father's mother and my father's family was not as convinced, but my mother is very convincing. And despite opposition from her husband and her mother-in-law, my mom said, "My children are going to learn how to swim." And I think that what I can only imagine is that there was trauma in my grandmother's family around water. And my mom did not want us to inherit that trauma. So the last day, man, probably 1982, 83, trying to pass a swimming test. You got to jump. You don't have to dive. You got to get off of that high diving board, which was high as hell, as I recall as a kid, which, I climb up, have to jump, don't jump. And my mom walks up the high diving board and pushes me in the water. And, I didn't die. My feet hit the bottom, 12 feet, and I shot right back up and I passed the test. And I really feel like who would think that your mother pushing you into a pool from the high diving board is grace? But I think it's grace. And I think it also is a sign of how the maternal and the divine are so linked. 'Cause I feel like often the divine is pushing me off of high diving boards. Knowing, now here's the thing, my mom has to know, just like the divine has to know, that it is dangerous. Like, it's dangerous to swim, but it may be more dangerous to never get in the water. And that's one of the things that I'm contending. It may be more dangerous to stand and to look. Like right now, a lot of things are going on in our nation, in our world, and it may be more dangerous to stand and to look than to jump in. And so I tie that to the song we sang growing up, especially around the time of baptism, Wade in the Water. And what I had not thought about was that the song gives theological impetus to the divine. God's going to trouble the water. God is not just the God of calm seas, but God is the God of roiling water. And it could be that God is the source of the roiling and inviting us in. And that's the way I think about it. It's interesting. I've got my mom pushing me on one end and God inviting on the other. And I think that those positionalities change as well. So, but water has perfect memory. Isn't that incredible? Water
It's so
has
funny.
perfect memory.
Father's Day here, Frozen 2. That's the whole theme of, or not the whole theme, but a big part of Frozen 2 is that water has perfect memory. Which now I'm like, did they steal that from Toni Morrison? They probably did. I say steal.
But you gotta tell me, Phil, please. I know of Frozen, but help me with that. I need to hear that.
Well, it's
How's it
been a minute
work?
since I've seen it, but essentially that's what Elsa is doing. Is she's trying to figure out like their history and their like her ancestors in some ways, like what actually happened to her family. Her parents, they believe, died in like this shipwreck, and so she has to go and find what has happened like with her, and she goes to this like ice mountain or like this ice island, and like through being engaged with the water there, like the water tells the story of her ancestors. You need to
Wow.
go watch Frozen 2, Bill. You might be
I'm,
you might
I'm
have a
gonna get on
religious
it, son.
experience. Yeah, a
I,
religious
it,
experience watching Frozen 2. It really
I
is
would do.
powerful. It's a beautiful movie. And look, I think we could talk about water for a long time because there's so many good, like not just analogies, but like experiences, and like the perfect memory thing is a really great word for it. And I mean, again, baptismal waters, like there's just so many places to go on water. But you mentioned music, and you mentioned music I think twice now already. And often in your sermons, music comes up. Will you talk a bit about how music in some ways also has perfect memory, like, or at least
Oh,
stirs the memory? Like in some ways, the God's going
always.
to trouble the water comes up, happens through music sometimes. Will you talk just about what
Look,
music does for you?
look. Even this shirt I'm wearing, which is a quote from the outstanding Outcast album, ATLians, the song Elevators. My shirt says "Me and you, your mama and your cousin too," like one of the greatest hooks in all of hip hop. What can I say about music? Last night we were at a concert, and one of the songs that the artist sang, if it was something, if love be food, then music. It was tying love and music. To me, I write about having music surround me in my mother's womb because I remember as a very young child going to the choir rehearsals, having that music pulse all around me. I remember the joy. We lived in a community where there would be, and I'm sure people do this, but not as much. This was very early 80s, late 70s, where everybody in the community, month to month, we would have parties at different houses. The parties were for adults, but when the party came to our house, whoever house hosted the party, their family stocked up on liquor, which of course for the adults, they did not serve liquor to kids, but also on music. So when it came time for us to host, my parents would come home. This is when we got the Thriller album, Herbie Hancock's Rocket, the Lionel Richie album that was out at that time, like all of this music. And they would let us open the stuff, open the albums, look at the covers, put them on the turntable. My dad's 8 tracks, Isaac Hayes, Stevie Wonder, James Cleveland, like all of this stuff. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir's Christmas music, Johnny Mathis's Christmas album, like all of this stuff. Music everywhere. Then hearing my grandfather, who had a tremendous voice singing. We would gather on Christmas in the living room, which I think is the only day we went in that in that room all year was Christmas and Thanksgiving, and we would sing Christmas carols together for hours. and family members would come in. So music is the language of spirit and soul for me, and it lifts me, it inspires me. I was talking to someone about one of the so I have a lot of musical experiences with soul, hip hop, gospel, but I was talking about the first time I went to a symphony orchestra. I probably never would have gone, but I was at Chautauqua, and the person that was directing the symphony was from my hometown. It was a young black man. So I went, and man, it was a spiritual experience. This dude was conducting with such vigor that he tore a hole under the arm in his jacket. Like his seams burst. It was that much energy. And that's on the energetic side. On the sublime side, I like the work of Rick Rubin, one of the pioneers of hip hop. And he writes about seeing Johnny Cash in his later years and like just being upset because he felt like Johnny had still had some miles in him, but he was playing like some clubs that were insignificant. So he brings Johnny in and records those sessions with Johnny. And that song by Johnny that he sings, "Hurt," the Nine Inch Nails song, bro, that's one of the most beautiful things I've ever. It's like he reaches into me and says stuff that is so meaningful. And what I say about that too is he's so close to death. Like if you listen to that, you hear death in his voice. He knows it, we know it, and it's so human. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. Like it's just music does for us what other artistic forms I don't know that they can do. I think that we're at our best when we connect musically, and I think all of us can make music, and hopefully it's honest and it's connecting, and it helps us to be more fully who we are. But yeah, that music, man, we could talk about that forever.
Well, we'll keep on that thread for a minute. Because you talk about in your chapter on music, do you fill your head with mindless chatter to make the music go away? It won't. It demands to be. It is an inner music that guides and directs. You can no more stop the music than you can stop the sun from rising or the waves crashing on the shore. We keep watch for the music like we await the sun's appearance each morning. We listen for the music like we would listen for the waves at the beach. A, that's gorgeous. And B, will you talk to us about what is our tendency to fill our head with endless chatter so that it makes our music go away? Where does that stem from, do you think, Bill?
Wow, Jenny, I just gotta be still and receive that came through me. That's so true. And here's what's important, what I have to note. I still am the best at suppressing my music. I had to write that because I'm so damn good at it. Like I am the king, the queen, the prince, the princess, all the things, the duke, the earl of the suppression. I believe that we are afraid not of the wrath of God, but of the love of God. We're afraid not of the judgment of God, but the mercy of God. We are not afraid that we are incompetent. As the poet says, we are afraid that we are more able, more capable than we could ever dream. Afraid of our own beauty and power. But you guys are helping me because what I think also, this work, Jenny, was about me trying to confront my own beauty, my own power. I think the next things I will write, hopefully, I'll be even more honest about the suppression of the music. But I feel like, and I know this to be true about myself, when the mirror is before me to help me see who I am, I push it away. I don't want to see. I don't want to know. and I don't want to hear. What is true is that it has to be, if the music is going to arise, as I think about, we're thinking about, as I tried to write about there are portions of the music's reality that has to happen internally, but there are also portions that can only happen communally. So right now, this is a major moment of the music's power because you asked me a question that is forcing me to kind of scrape away all the stuff that I habitually use to block the sounds from emerging. I also think that we have a culture that teaches us to block the music because in blocking the music, we become better consumers. I mean, think about it. All of the jingles and the images. I used to know this, but the number of advertising images that the average American gets per day, we should look it up. It's like tens of thousands. It's crazy. The messaging is crazy. It's that. It is the algorithms. All of these things that are designed to teach us that we are empty and in need of something externally. And the problem is that, and I don't know of any human being who can't testify to this. Then when you seek the external stuff to make the music go away, it doesn't go away, right? It's like the water; it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. So I'm glad that you reminded me of that, Jenny. I need to go back and read that because that is it's so it's so true that I wrote it, but it also is so true that I am not at all the master of these things. Mastery, writing about it is not me mastering. I really think the writing about it is the crying out and the craving to be more of who the music wants me to be.
Geez, I've been thinking so much about distraction lately and how often I'm distracted and how often it keeps me from connection, real connection, intimacy, vulnerability, all the best things. Because to hear your own music means that you have to be vulnerable.
Yes.
You have to be vulnerable with it. And I do not want to be vulnerable. Like I don't want it. And then in the moments where it hits me anyway, where the music gets through and it floors me, I'm always so thankful. It's a continuous battle that is real. Um,
Hmm.
where do you find true connection right now, Bill, that helps you hear your own music?
This may sound corny, but it is so true. Nature. So I told Dana recently, I think I shared with some friends as well. This happened yesterday. I'm driving through our suburban county, Prince George's County, Maryland. I see all of these trees, and I offer thanks to the trees. I say, thank you, trees, for being the lungs of creation. Like these beautiful, stately trees. We have in our home every morning for the past 3 or 4 weeks a bird that is kind of crashing into the windows, making noise early. And it's very interesting. The bird arises, and the first thing the bird does is comes in and flies into our windows. So Dana was out of town. I woke up, I was walking down the stairs, and I finally saw the culprit, a little baby bird about this big. And this bird is not wise enough to know, because I did some research. He sees the image of the tree in the window and thinks that he is landing in the tree, but he's hitting the window. And I saw the little bird. It's as close as I had gotten. He was right outside of the window. And I said to him, "Listen, little fella, you can make all of the mistakes you need to because you were here before we were. So, and I hope that you figure this out before your flight is so muscular and fast that this injures you, that you're harmed. So it's that little bird who keeps bumping into windows like old ass me. I keep bumping into the same windows. And Jenny, I should know by now that the images in these windows there, it's not even the thing I need. Now we should all write about that, right? Bumping into the windows, like we know it's an image, but we keep bumping into it. So I in nature, um, the ancient African rhetoricians would say, as above, so below. So when I see these things in nature, it tells me what is in the worlds to come, but it also tells me about myself. So it is nature. I pay attention to every squirrel. It was interesting. This is funny. We were standing outside of the sanctuary chatting. You know, I am now really thankful for what it means to worship in person and see people hugging each other and fist bumping. Like this human connection is very important. So we were standing outside talking to some folks, and there was a squirrel. And you know, city squirrels are relatively tame, but not this tame. This squirrel walked over and posted up next to my shoe, like 2 inches from me, and wouldn't move. And all of my people around saying, "Look, it's the Black Francis. It's the Black Francis." You know. So they were like, "Oh, we know." They were like, "Oh, you have the light, sir. You have the light." Even the animals. So it was just that was funny. I mean, even Jenny down to the rats who fight for space in Washington. If you live in D.C., you're Phil and I talked about this. You're in a constant battle to make sure that they don't take over. But I even have respect for them. I'm learning in nature. This is the last thing. You guys are gonna laugh uproariously at this. We were fighting the rats. And in a building as old as ours, you have to make sure there's no way for them to get in. They'll always get in. So there was a hole underneath our concrete steps. So we had sealed around the hole and put a stone that weighed about 3 pounds in front of it. The rats literally rolled the stone away. With rat engineering, they dug beneath it. And I came back and I asked our building manager, "Did you move this stone?" He said, "No, man, I thought you moved it." Literally, they dug underneath it and rolled the stone away. The rats cooperated that much. So in nature, in the nature that we're trying to control, the nature that's all around, the trees, the grass, the water, like I'm fascinated by it. And when I attune myself to that, I feel like the music it's real then. Sitting outside listening to bird song, thinking about how close to the earth many of my ancestors were. They insisted on having gardens and farms, hands in the dirt. And to me, there is nothing that connects humans to Creator more than our hands in the dirt. Because the creation account says that that the divine is a gardener, planted a garden, hands in the dirt, and used that dirt to make us. And I just committed the remains of a faithful church member, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. All of these things. And part of it is because I'm 51, I think, Jenny, and I'm very clear that I have more yesterdays than tomorrows. Often I sit down and I think about the number of people I probably now at this point have known as many people who are no longer here, probably more intimately than the people that. So it's just life is shifting and awareness is opening. I'm trying to be, well, that's not true. I'm not trying as I ought, but I want to be more open. And y'all help me. I want to use a different verb than trying because trying doesn't seem. Is it y'all? Is it surrendering? Is it? I
Yearning.
don't know if I like that. Yearning? What is it? Because I want to name the ways that I am resistant and undisciplined around the thing that I desire the most. What help me? I don't know. I don't know what to call it. Human. I
Well,
don't know.
I mean so that actually gets to what I wanted to go to with the idea of the window and the bird. But before I can go there, I have to say that because you take the Bible seriously, you have to write a whole new exegesis on the stone being rolled away being done by rats. And nobody can prove you wrong on that one.
No,
So it
actually
was
not. Look, I have the evidence, sir. I have the evidence. We have
it's
seen.
God conspiring with nature to roll the stone away. I think something just
And
happened.
is God on our side or the rat side? Here's the thing. Really, like I look, whose side is God on?
Maybe we'll come to find out that it's one and the same side.
That
Maybe
would
the
be
rats
good.
are conspiring with Metropolitan and just not sure how yet.
To make DC a better city, some kind of way.
That's
We don't
right.
understand it.
Okay, I could not. But back to the window, and you talked about mirrors earlier, and how sometimes it's scary to look at the mirror. You know, a window is a tricky thing because it's not fully translucent, right? Like there's both a mirror, you can see reflection, and you can see through it. And so the image of this bird running into a window thinking that it's the real thing, the tree, is really pretty incredible because it's making me think about all the things that like I have an image of that I think is what I want to go to, but sometimes it's really just the image or the idea of it is what I'm really drawn to, and yet I do keep just running into the window of it for whatever reason, right? Whether it's distraction, whether it's because the window looks so shiny that it actually seems more appealing than the tree. The idea of understanding and diving in and learning about ancestors seems really appealing, and yet like I kind of bump into the window, but I haven't really sat on that tree yet. I think the way I engage in ministry and justice work and like some of like that window seems really appealing and like a necessary thing for me to land on, and yet I think often I'm really just bumping into a tree. So this metaphor that you've just put before me is stirring some things within me, and I'm wondering where you find yourself currently bumping versus where you find yourself actually landing.
I think the best interviews bring about this space to have to think. And I am bumping because I have work to do that I am avoiding. I have academic work to do that I am avoiding. I have ministry work that I am avoiding. I have personal and relational work that I am avoiding. And it's like you said, like when you face Jenny, you said this, you said it more eloquently than I'm going to say it, but like when you face the music, the thing that you feel is so powerful. It feels like you're home because you're at home in yourself. I can't remember the guy who wrote the book, but his argument is we have to move past this kind of notion in Western mythology and literature that you have to venture out to find your purpose. Like I leave home, the Odyssey, all that stuff, or to venture out to find to find the divine, to find creator. Really, it is an inward journey, and the inward journey, the internal geographies petrify us much more than the externals. I think that. I mean, I've seen the Grand Canyon. But I would argue that what I feel looking over into that, like the beauty and the terror, I'd argue that diving into Bill Lamar, more beauty, more terror, or maybe not more, but equivalent, right? So I'm bumping into myself, man, because I'm not feel that journey. I mean, it's Howard Thurman's language, the inward journey, the inward journey. That's I gotta get to that.
That sound of the
Marvin
genuine,
Gaye,
right?
but look, yeah, the sound Marvin Gaye, but he's not talking about this. But this is why I'm also I think a lot about the multivalence of soul music He has a song called "Come Get to This." Like I think I could take that. Come get to this internal thing, this internal reality, and there are a lot of people who write about God and the erotic, and when we hear erotic, we think you know pornographic stuff, but that's not. They're getting at the physicality, the beauty, the corporeality. I like that word, corporeality. And I think that I was listening to someone who is talking through the Song of Songs, this idea of intimacy with the Creator, with one another. And here's the last thing I'll say about the bumping. It is my fear of the internal exploration, charting the caverns and the mountains that are in. See, Phil, you're helping me, man. All we have to actually explore and chart cartographically the geography, our inner geographies. Man, there's something there, man. There's something. Don't don't take that before I could do something with it. We got to work together on that because it took you two to get that out of me. But isn't that beautiful? Like internal cartography, and then understanding that once you map the cartography internally, just like externally, stuff is going to shift and move. Uh, I lost my train of thought because I got caught up in that. But yeah,
No,
that's it.
it's so good.
I'm
But like
bumping into that, man.
when we did this season on pilgrimage, that's what we really reflected on in our opening episode. Talked about like sometimes the longest pilgrimage you will ever take is the internal one, right? Like pilgrimage, we think of an external walking journey, but like sometimes the most feared and treacherous journey you will ever take is the internal one, and that maybe that's I think what the beauty of pilgrimage offers is it's both an outward expression of the inward journey, and I think I think cartography is a great word for it.
I love words, man.
Well, as you think about the inner cartography of you, I think anytime we go on a pilgrimage, internal, external, we need guides. We need a guide. We can't do it on our own. Otherwise, we're going to get lost. We're not going to have the wisdom that we need for the journey. It has to be connective and community oriented. Who of your ancestors right now is really inviting you, calling to you? Is someone that's present to you currently?
Pushing you off the diving board.
Pushing you off the diving board. Yes.
So always my maternal grandmother, Gladys, always one whom I met as an infant, but I was born August 74. He died April of 75. My great grandfather, uh, after whom I am named. Always, it's very interesting. I think, Jenny, it's safe to say that my love for history has always been an ancestral conjuring. I used to think as a kid, and this is what kind of stiff little nerdy kid I was, that reading fiction was stupid. Why would you read something that people made up when you could read like real human lives? And I realized how stupid I
Preach.
was as a
No,
kid.
look, I spent
Yeah.
15 years that way.
Hey, look, but now, Phil, now I will not speak for you, my dear friend, but I will speak to the stupidity of that notion because I have learned that a thing need not be factual for it to be true. And some of the best truth that humans have produced has been by way of the mythological. Um, so, Jenny, I said all that aside was to get us here. Um, I listen to podcasts a lot and don't read as much as I should, but folding into my inner geography the stories of people I meet through lectures and podcasts and books, they're always new stories that just really compel me. And yeah, so by blood, I mentioned those, and by bond, that list is growing and growing and growing. I love documentaries for this reason. I just watched a wonderful documentary about W.E.B. Du Bois on PBS. Fascinating, fascinating. Watched last night Questlove's new documentary about Earth, Wind, and Fire, which focuses on Maurice White. Now, there's not one of us who does not know the opening notes of September by Earth, Wind, and Fire. There's not one of us who has not danced to that song. But what's interesting, now this is spirit conspiring. This is full circle. Guess what that line, do you remember? The 21st night of September, a day I can't remember. That is the date that his partner told him that his son would be born. That's how Maurice White entered into that space to write that song. That, Phil, is a father. And here's the thing that's even more important. Maurice White struggled with love all of his life because he felt like his mother abandoned him. He was born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1941, essentially the worst of the worst Jim Crow. His mother leaves to go to Chicago so she can make a living. She comes back to get him, but at that time he's a teenager. So he himself, all the people who loved him and his children, said it was hard for him to love. It was hard for him to commit. And often the way what he would do is he would abandon those closest to him because he was abandoned. And his writing that lyric, this is a father yearning to figure out, how do I love this human being I really want to love, that my love produced, but I'm not good at it because of what I experienced. Like that, all of the pain, the vulnerability there, and although that's not my story, I got a September 21 reality for me. So could it be that though we're dancing around joyfully, at some level, Maurice White has also communicated to us his pain, his longing, his bumping in, flying into mirrors and windows there? Because I don't think that, I think human joy is always seasoned by human pain. I don't know how we got it. Well, because I stayed up last night watching that documentary.
Ugh. And just again, love
When I
of
should have been
history.
working, I should have been doing something else. But it was
Don't
work.
shit all over yourself. You know. I have also just really loved mythology lately, and the mythologist Michael Mead has been very influential for me lately. And he talks about how there's the literal reading of things, the metaphorical reading, and then the mythological reading of things as well. And I think like, what a just incredible next lens, right? Next layer of meaning that can be drawn from like everything, right? Like just like a window. Like we, in some ways, you know, like the mythologists would say, you're not just like using the window as a metaphor, but like in some ways you're the window actually. Like in what ways are you the window? You know, like.
I feel you need to send me that. Are you reading text from him? Are you watching
He
stuff?
both. He has a podcast that is, oh Bill, it's incredible. He's really really good. Jenny, what's the podcast name? I'm blanking.
It's called Living Myth.
Living Myth. Yeah, the Living Myth podcast.
And he also has a Substack by the same name that's really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, I'm on it.
Oh, it's so good. He does really incredible work. And so
Living Myth.
The Living Myth podcast, yeah. And I mean honestly, I just started reading a book, nonfiction, because I'm such a nerd too, and I need to read. It's summer and I need to read fiction. But I'm reading a book right now on that's comparing the Gospel of Mark to the Odyssey. Like you mentioned the Odyssey earlier, and that basically making the argument that the author of Mark was so influenced by texts like the Odyssey coming from the involvement, like the how much the Greek influence had in that space when that text was written, and so like comparing and contrasting the Odyssey and the Gospel of Mark. And I thought, like, well, this movie, The Odyssey, is about to come out. I need to go back and I just, Thomas and I, my 7-year-old, have been reading The Odyssey at night. Like, there's a kid's version, and like, I think that mythology has so much to teach us because of what you said earlier, right? Like, some of the deepest truths have been conveyed through storytelling, far beyond any way that a fact could tell us, you know. And like, what I think, this is a meandering question, if it's even a question, but like, what I want to draw it to is, what are the like we've talked about music, what are the stories that are living in you, and what is the story that you are living, or at least what point of the story are you living right now?
Let me say this. You all should have like 5 million people downloading this, but I'm gonna be very honest. I listen to a lot of interviews. You all are masterful at opening space for me to either get in the tree or fly into the window. It is perfect. So what I'm not going to do is what the president of the United States did on Meet the Press and get up and walk out.
Take your toys and get out of here.
Yeah, take my toys. Where he's walking into a storm, and then we know all of his makeup and hair is going to fall. But anyway, here is. I'm going to be honest. I am living daily with the powerful poetry of resurrection. I have decided that the best way for me to live into resurrection is to approach resurrection as the most beautiful poetic invitation to live, work, move, and be as if death itself has died. That means politically, theologically, relationally. So it's a really conspiratorial thing of forces, shadow forces in my language, to take resurrection, the story of resurrection, and melt it down to the story of one man getting up from the grave. That I think, and I don't use this word often, but I'm going to use it now. That is, I think, a demonic reading. To take this thing called resurrection and locate it in one person. This is the awakening of the cosmos. This is what creation has been longing for, to use the apostles' language. This is, notice how afraid Rome was of resurrection. America is not afraid of resurrection because Rome, I think, and one way to read it, Rome understood it. And America knows now that resurrection has been so totally defanged. They don't care if you preach about it every day. The Romans were like, put a stone and soldiers there. There's a sermon there, there's a book there. Seal that sucker up so tight that not even a rumor could get out that this dude is up. Because they understood that they could no longer control a people who believed in resurrection, who lived resurrection. Now, for us, because it's about dying and going to heaven, because it's about an abdication and an escape and a left behind Darbyist crazy making, right? It doesn't threaten power here. It actually gives power the y'all help me. It gives power the cover that it needs, that is operating theologically. So man, that story is so powerful, has so many freaking levels, and it keeps messing with me. It keeps messing with me. Muddy Waters, in one of his songs, like he's speaking explicitly sexually, but I hear it in other ways where he says, I'm going to mess with you. Like the resurrection messes with you. And I'm using Muddy Waters' sexual erotic language because the resurrection messes with us bodily, erotically, communally. It messes with your feet and your eyes and your hands and your fingers. And really, I think the resurrection is the theological, how shall we say this? It's the theological representation of how nature itself presents. Nothing that is dead stays dead. The grass comes back, and the things that die and compost, life grows from them. So, last thing I'll say. No, actually, Phil, you were here. Remember when we were doing our thing with TMF, the cohort groups, and we went to the botanical garden thing? Were you in that cohort, Phil? Maybe
I
not.
think that's different. I don't think I did that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you should have been there. So we go
I
to
should
a
have.
beach. Phil, Jenny, you should have been there too. But we go to the botanical gardens, and now check this out. It mimics different ecosystems globally. So this one was mimicking an Amazonian type ecosystem. It was the hottest ecosystem that was represented in the place. And our guide told us that nature has the most diversity in places where there is the most death. Because all of these plants that die, all of these animals that die, they're composted quickly in the heat and new life, new forms arise. I was listening to a podcast last night. They were talking about whale carcasses. When whales die, they land on the bottom of the floor of the ocean, and that they become the seedbeds of some of the most diverse ocean life ever. I'm going to say this, and it's going to get out, but my denomination and possibly yours, it must die so that something new that pleases God can arise from the death of a thing like all of us that must die.
And yet people want to just sit and argue about whether or not resurrection literally happened of Jesus.
Man, I'm not arguing that anymore. I'm like, sign me up for this
Which,
resurrection life.
and it, right? Like, again, you literally just walked us through the literal, metaphorical, and mythological understanding of resurrection. And, like,
Did I really do that, Phil? I didn't even know that, man. I didn't
you
know
just did. You absolutely just did, right? Like, because what you said about the Rome and the power and control, like, to get us caught on the literal aspect of whether or not this is, quote, true and actually factually happened, prevents us from actually taking the next step to ask of what's the metaphor teach us about resurrection that nature tells us every year, right? Like, there's a metaphorical teaching of that aspect, but like the mythological understanding of it is everything that you just said. Like, you are living it. That's how you started this statement. You are living resurrection, challenging what does death actually have to teach you, like, have to do with this right now. So thank you. Like, there's a book there. There's a book there too, Bill. You
Man,
might want to write that down.
the books everywhere, bro. Books everywhere. And I'm telling you, I got to get there next because, yeah, I got to get there next. I got to get there next.
Well, and like that's an Easter message I'm interested in.
And I think it's been one that I have been really like, what were they afraid of, man? This dude was some poor preacher. All of his friends left him. What were they afraid of, man? They look. This is one of the definitions of the state that one of my more progressive professors gave us. I studied public administration. Go figure. But I got my degree in it was called public management. Can you imagine me, man, doing that? I might have been good at it. Who knows? But he said that the definition of the state is the entity that has the monopoly on death.
Wow.
The state gets to kill.
Man.
State has a monopoly on it. Now, if I go killing you and it's outside of the will of the state's going to come get me. Now, if you're killing me and I'm someone the state wants you to kill, the
On
state
behalf
won't
of
really be concerned.
Wow.
But the state has a monopoly. Trump decided, hey, we're going to go kill people in Iran. We're going to go do this in Venezuela. That is what the state can do. So the state is undone by a regime, a religion, a theology that says death is defeated. If death is defeated, then the state is defeated in that way. It's undone.
Wow. And that's what puts you on a cross, right? And I think that's what.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's what all of us who start dealing in the space of resurrection have to be aware of too, right? Like, there's a risk involved here.
Well, it ain't. Look, but I'm telling you, if we can do this in community and mutual care, it's not going to be any easier, but it will be beautiful. And the truth of the book of Revelation, this is another thing. Like, these people had crazy imagination. That's why some scholars said they were doing psychedelics. Who knows what they were doing to
Totally.
come up with all that stuff, man. That stuff's crazy, right? But I think that is resident in humans, that kind of wild imagination that we find ways to eclipse But the book of Revelation says this is the blood of the martyrs. Like, if we live this way, some of us will die, but all of us will not die. And I remember I was preaching that for a little while, and people were like, man, that ain't what we come to church for in America, to hear to hear stuff like that. Nobody wants to hear that. But all of us will not survive. I may not live, but we will live. And what kind of life is it living in fear? And I mean, all of us play these games. Now, none of us, Jenny, we're all in so many ways trapped in this web. And the more we fight it, it seems like the more the spider's coming to get us. But what kind of life is that? Bonhoeffer, life together. What is that? What's the power of that?
Gosh, Bill, we could go on for a very long time here, and I would cherish every moment of it. But for the sake of your time and listeners' time and all of our time, I want to do two things. I want to know what is a memory that you have of Father's Day or your father that brings to mind for you. And then I also have one other last question after that, because it's just, I'm taking a moment of personal privilege. But what's a Father's Day moment that you have that resonates?
Man, it's an ongoing thing that we did. But every Father's Day, we were in Macon, Georgia, with my father and his father. So sitting in the little room where my grandfather slept and watched television with my dad on a Father's Day. And a tradition we had is if your father was living, you wear a red carnation to church. If your father was deceased, you wear a white one. So I have a red one. My dad had a red one. My grandfather had a white one. And we were all there, the family. So being in that place. And I'm looking at my dining room table right now, and I can see my grandfather seated at the head of the table. And to me, that was a place of reverence.
I love that. That's beautiful. I think I'm just getting on that. My point of personal privilege I'll take later.
I think, Bill, I would like to head down our ending of our time together with the question: if people haven't ever done any ancestor work, if this is an unfamiliar territory for folks, how would you invite them in to invite their ancestors?
I would ask them to think of one human being whom they know who pierced the veil, who is no longer here, someone they loved and cherished. I think most of us, maybe not all of us, can think of a person. And if you can't think of a living human, because some people may be very young and they may not have experienced death yet, think of someone you admire in history: a musician, a writer, a political leader, if you can find one. And Jenny, I hope this is helpful, because it came to me immediately with your question. Imagine a conversation with them. Engage in a conversation with that person. You speak and leave space in your imagination for them to reply. And as they say in churchy language, watch God work.
And I'm in no means an expert on this, but I think, you said water has perfect memory, so maybe bring some water into the mix of it. Or if it's not
Yes.
water, then maybe light a candle, right?
Yeah.
Maybe earth, wind, and fire, right?
Yes.
Put your hands in the
Yes.
soil, like, to figure out
Yeah.
how that may
Yeah.
generate as well.
Libations. Have their picture before you. If you have, listen to their voice. I'm telling you. What Maurice White said, since we talked about it, he said as he was dying, he believed in metaphysics. He said it's all energy. And this is the last thing he said to his family: I will not be present, but I will be here. And that is true of the ancestors. They may not be present, but in the words of the great Don Cornelius, host of Soul Train, you can bet your bottom dollar that they are here. By the way, I got to get me a Don Cornelius t-shirt. That's my first purchase. I got to get that, because that dude was the coolest dude ever to walk the face of the earth.
I love it. Bill, thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do, your leadership, your sharing the gifts that you are and have with the world. It truly is a blessing to so many. And this book, right? Bless who and curse. We didn't even get on the curse part. Maybe that's
I'll
for
come
later.
back. I'll come
That's
back.
for
Jenny will have me back.
that's right. That's for another conversation. But truly, thank you for taking the time to be with us and for sharing. And is there anything that's coming up that you really want to share with our audience or invitations?
I can't think of anything now, but you and I will stay in touch. Something's always popping off, and you better
For sure.
believe, yeah, something's always popping off.
I will say, if you're in DC on a Sunday morning, you should drop by Metropolitan AME because it's a beautiful experience.
Thank you,
Blessed
brother.
me for sure. And to everyone else, again, a happy Father's Day for all that stirs in you.
Father's
We hope
Day.
that you can commune with the ancestors in a beautiful way on this day.
Thank you for being a part of the Radical Sacred community.
In these uncertain times, may you cling to hope and deep connection, and may you work towards living in the spirit of reciprocity with all beings.
Our lovely intro and outro music is Beach Song by the band Saren.
And it's just the two of us here at Radical Sacred, so please help us out by sharing with your friends, rating and reviewing us. Find more of our work on Substack and Instagram.
Remember, you are on sacred ground. Stay rooted.